Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Lifting. Today's episode is being filmed on 5/15/25. Yet another Q&A. You keep coming, so I guess you keep the questions coming. This is now where I open a circle to true benevolence with no conflicting agendas at this moment in time. Joanna?
We're all one. And when one is harmed, all are harmed. When one is helped, all are helped. Therefore, in the name of who I am, and I am one with all there is, that only the highest good be done. We pray for you, your friends, your family, your loved ones, to let healing energies in. Let them love you, let them nourish you, and let them bring you to your highest good. We ask for benevolence now to come in with no conflicting agenda, so that this conversation can be had calmly and the Q&As can run smoothly. We ask for malevolent or mischievous beings to be swept away now, so that we can have this conversation in peace. And with that, with great blessings that we always send your way, we say so be it.
And so be it. This is going to be an interesting one, folks. I will say before we start, you heard all those Michael Jackson channelings on the last few of them. I have had nothing but strings of Michael Jackson synchronicities and/or connections for like a week, including hearing "Beat It" a number of times on store radio, and also was seeing things like on Gutfeld and everything. Even today, seen them all week. I know with the internet you can't trust it because it's the algorithm, but when you go places is when I've been seeing and hearing it. I found that quite interesting. So I will start with this affirmation and blessing. To seek unity, one must follow only one thing: temperance. That is all. Wink emoji, and that's Harry. That's range for Harry from the Charles J. Hall material. So I thought that was interesting. He wrote the affirmation and blessing. Here's the first question.
All right, it's asking about baby milk powder. Is it addicting? Also, is there any kind of supplement needed to counteract negative effects or to just make it relatively healthy? It sure smells like it crawled up out of a stopped up storm drain just outside of Walmart. What can we do about this white death besides burying it with other nuclear waste where it belongs?
Yeah, okay. Probably not as harsh as you think that is, everybody. Elena here to state that, yes, get rid of it. It gets babies addicted to other things later, sugar, drugs, etc. That is all. Elena, that's literally the only thing she said on it. So it was mostly in caps on here. So I know I was picking up on some stuff too, just like in the soft drinks like Diet Coke and everything. Not only do they have NutraSweet, but they had nanites in there. So this, I have no doubt, is true as well. I thought that was interesting. Next one.
In the game Valheim, there is a heavenly misty type of area with a magical people and giant bugs. I find it strangely relaxing and beautiful, though many players get their balls in a knot over it. Is there a real land of great mists here on Earth or on Asgard or the Nine Realms that this game is depicting? Or are we just getting glimpses of Odin's bathhouse?
That actually, he responded directly to that. So this place is real. The one of mists. Hyperborea to the north and to the east a bit, in an area not tread on by men in millennia. It is not just my bathhouse. Haha. Odin. That's pretty much all he said. But Hyperborea, that would be essentially a fragment of Asgard here on Earth, a dimensional causeway passageway between our frequency and the now current Asgardian frequency. That's just like if you go through Skyrim, about the Isle of Artaeum. They show a dimensional space for the Isle of Artaeum for the Sigic Order. That is exactly how Asgard sits at the moment, exactly how they describe it in the Elder Scrolls lore. I mean, to a T. So, I'm not going to reinvent the wheel. Just go to the lifting episode about the Sigic Order. You will hear me talk about a lot of that. So, next one.
Is the future kind and the multidimensional task force one and the same?
And Vesa did this one. Vesa here. No, we are not one and the same, but we do work together a lot. That is all. vessel. They seem to be famous for the short answers in this one, so I was able to cram more in here. But yeah, the future kind are in technically again, they're in a timeline again, like Isle of Artem, where they've just separated themselves outward and created their own flow to that, where they can't be messed with. Time Core, I believe they work with them a little bit, but also the MDTF also polices essentially in their timeline. They police an area that's also like the scene in Thor Ragnarok with the Sakaran planet where it had all the portals dumping crap onto their planet. That's the timeline that they're in, where there's it's essentially a big nexus for the Argentine tree, where it comes together, where there's multiple doorways, exactly like you saw in that scene where Heimdall tells Thor, "You're in a place with many doorways." So that's essentially that. I find it interesting how a lot of Marvel parallels are popping up lately. No pun intended. Next.
The recent spheres hovering round, landing at an airport, being seen by a lot in South America, and also being found and retrieved by a local, and currently being studied. Are these just SSP gimmicks or something more?
Okay, this one was by Isaac. Part gimmick, part truth. To direct you both towards a particular race and spirit's way of telling you more is out there, even if it is wrapped in a narrative package. Next question, please, dumbass. Isaac. So what he's saying is essentially it's a part of a narrative where some people in the three-letter agencies are trying to direct you towards a certain thing, but he's saying spirit's way, meaning people like himself are doing some of this, where they're crashing a ship here and there, things of that nature. What they will do is they'll go whoops, and an orb or something crashes on the planet, and then regular people find it, so that people know there's more of an expanded universe out there. They just do it little by little, dropping little seeds and some space junk on people every now and again, not actual on their house, but like there was a story of a sphere that was that landed in someone's yard, and they had it in their house for like 2 or 3 weeks, something like that, before it was confiscated. Incidents like that. So we'll go on to the next one.
The alignment of the planetoids in our solar system. Surely a lot of portals opening and peeps doing much traveling during this alignment time. Possibly some evil plans and better ones. Anything unusual happening here with this once in 1,000 lifetime event, or just the typical accelerator startup, Mason parties, and some extra shadow work?
Yep. Okay. This one is from Elena. If you are referring to the so-called event, this simply is not happening. No planned portals like your Lionsgate, none, and I mean none of these are real. Sorry. And she frowned like this, and psyops is all. Elena, I actually have to agree with this. The Lionsgate thing, especially, that it pops up on August 8th every year. This is some kind of unofficial, I guess, holiday where everybody goes, well, we're entering the Lionsgate again. It's going to get rough here. That's like saying it's Mercury retrograde again. It's going to get bad. You see what I'm saying? Even though there are some weird things that happen during Mercury retrogrades, I can't discount the fact that that could also be a psyops, and they're using psionic dampening to get people to co-create it using their own psionic fields to co-create their own misery. I'm actually voting more in that camp, but I don't doubt that also the solar system is bringing in some of it too. But 9/10 of the time I've seen it as V2K and psionic dampening. I'm not saying that astrology is bunk. I'm just saying that some of these things, especially the Lionsgate, that one was actually proven roughly around 1997-98. The three-letter agencies, mainly the CIA, created the Lionsgate holiday. If you guys want to see that kind of stuff be its own show, please let us know. And we'll be glad to do that one. So next one.
Does Isaac personally know range 4 Harry? Is he really a douche or one of the more okay ones?
Okay, this was actually both of them that answered this question. So yes, he is both a douche and an okay one. He will complete this sentence, and then it was, even though technically Isaac completed that sentence, not to nitpick or be, okay, now I read it. Okay, the one you call range for Harry here, I am still in communication with Charles J. Hall. We speak mostly telepathically, like Chris here and Isaac. He does not wish me to divulge more for now. Anyhow, greetings to you all. Wink. Bye for now, Isaac and Range 4 Harry. That famously, if you look at the Charles J. Hall material, if you look into the conspiracy sector episode me and Aubrey did on the Charles J. Hall and the Tall Whites, we actually spoke about the different tall white tech. Isaac was on there talking about this. It would have been interesting to have Range 4 Harry on that one, but this is essentially the main figure that that Charles J. Hall met first as one of the ETs out there at Nellis. So that is a bit of a rundown of Range 4 Harry. They call him Range 4 Harry because it was around the Range 4, I believe, little outbuildings that were around in the area around Nellis there for the weather station. So that's why he called him that. So, all right. Next one.
The dinos of Earth. Were they seeded? Are there many other worlds in our galaxy that have a Jurassic landscape? Before we were told many dinos thrived in Agartha, but what is the truth there?
Okay, this one I found interesting. Harry actually answered this one too. Yes, from what I personally understand of Earth's earliest original histories, they were seeded but got very dangerous. They were an earlier attempt at terraforming, but then things went a bit out of control. Things had to be reset, if you get my meaning, and the rest, as you all say, is history. Next question, if you please. New good sir, wink, Harry. So what he was saying was, because see, they crashed, the ETs crashed the big asteroid into the Earth to kill the dinosaurs off so that they didn't get eaten while walking the Earth. You saw bits of that history that's been fairly accurate in the movie 65, but they showed it as being an accident versus intentional of him crashing through the asteroid belt. But with this, it was what Harry's trying to say is they seeded the dinosaurs too. It didn't quite work, so they just crashed the asteroid and then killed them all. And there are also other races that were formed from the dinosaurs, like your Draco, but then there's another one called the Tern. You've heard the Lacerda files, probably on Y files, talks about this. If you want to see us go into some of that on our GIC, let us know. That was actually part of that, and it's a time frame in the Earth's history called the Great Seeding, where they seeded all the races from different planets, bringing in not only their continents or fragments of their planets, but they then arranged them in a pattern that we know them as today. So that's a time called the Great Seeding. They used terraforming technology that you would probably be familiar with. The basalt pillars that you see, those hexadecimal blocks, though that's ancient technology from the Great Seeding. If you look at the episode Ryan and I did on Halo Infinite, where they showed the same pattern on there, and they showed the infinity rings being terraformed, that is what they were actually referring to, was actually how they performed the Great Seeding. They also did Garden of Eden devices in there that were essentially the same thing, but they even in the game the first Descendant, they showed them moving and creating continents. So these are all references that are happen to be accurate. So next question.
There have been quite a few videos lately of people, vampires, straining themselves and popping those fangs out for the camera. Several videos of African people in Africa doing the same or similar thing. One was even a young boy. Are the vamps coming out? Could some be canid, werewolf related, possibly the African ones? Has there been an outbreak in Africa? And New Orleans seems to have a braver population of vamps. Are these the soulless types? Do they answer to Nosferatu?
Interesting, and I will say something before that. Yes, New Orleans is just like Interview with the Vampire, even though that Mandela effect from Interview with a Vampire. That was set in the exact area where a lot of the vamp type of things pop up. Are some of them soulless? Yes. Are there some that are bound to Midgard? Yes, because if they die, they just regurgitate, like the dragon and the Soul Cairn in Skyrim. If you go to that reference in the game material. Also, to the person writing the question, yes, there are African people in Africa. I just wanted to point that out. So, So I will go on to the answer. There we go. Yeah, it is. Okay. Harry here to say that sadly, that this is a very large experiment taking place right now in Africa as a whole, and he was very frowning about that. The vampire virus plus many of its variants include the canid werewolf virus, and many of its variants are being used in this sickening as well as douchebaggerous, and that's a
Debaucherous.
Oh, I thought it said douchebaggerous.
No.
I'm blind as a bat, folks. I thought you said douchebaggers.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, Isaac, I know now I coined a term. Thank you. The debaucherous. Oh, he goes, I'm going to remember you said douchebaggerous. Okay. 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 Here we go. Set of practices. It is a culling taking place, but one soon to backfire. I can say no more. But suffice to say, it will end sooner rather than later if you get my meaning. Please say that you do. Hee hee. Wink. Next question, please. Good sir. Wink. Harry. Now, he was basically saying, read between the lines on this one. The vampire virus, it would take far too long for me to describe that in all its variants, and the canid werewolf virus. Suffice to say, these are topics I'm thinking that will be part of Galactic Interversal Consortium at some point. Because these are far too large a topic to cover here. If you want to see some of these things about the vampire and canid werewolf virus, let me know. But essentially, this is essentially where you got the idea of The Witcher from. It's essentially super soldier. They chose School the Cat, School the Wolf. It's also some insiders pretty much said that that the Draco and also some human geneticists were creating werewolf soldiers to be on other planets and conquer them, basically in the name of the secret space programs. And then commit false flags on other planets. From some of my own memories, yes, some of that I could honestly say did take place from what I remember. But this is essentially what they were getting as is Africa being a gigantic freaking petri dish for a lot of these experiments. And I had a feeling that that boy that he was mentioning from the video was essentially being forced to get on film and see and show the fangs. And I've seen it; it's actually fairly long. You can't find that one too much anymore, by the way. Some have now. I want to differentiate. There's consciousness and there's soul. You have demonic presences, like some inborns that have a soul, but they also have this demonic consciousnesses in there. You have beings like Charles Manson and Starkweather that were consciousness, no soul, because you exit the soul out and you have far less light there. They're going the body is going to become feral and go psychotic in that way, or have more of an evil presence that could be uploaded to it. Even though that was more MK Ultraing there, you get my point. So I will go on to the next question. There we go. Yep.
If we ever run across a forest person or dog man in the woods, some are genuinely random meetings, but either way, is there some kind of respectful hand gesture or word we can use to show understanding and sort of unity, as opposed to the normal freaking out, gaping mouths, and whipping out of dumb phones to snap a video? I always thought that a closed hand tapping over the heart was a good sign, but is there a better salutation that we can use? What did they use back in the older times that such tribes might remember?
Okay. And this one, Fuma added his take in here. Fuma here with a short answer. Wink, think as well as feel your heart space friend. This usually works along with the heart hand sign, meaning like this. We have done done so for each other since time immemorial. This is all for now, Chris. Be safe and always remember, Analum always. Wink, kissing emoji, hugging emoji, waving emoji, wink, goodbye. They now, ever since Isaac started this fad, they got to have the emojis listed. Okay. Isaac started it. You can blame him. Okay. Next one.
The firmament was a topic recently introduced to us and sent me reeling into space. Can be explained in a little more detail. As I understand it, us humans cannot pass through it, but maybe if we really had advanced tech, we could. Unmanned flights can pass through it, but there is a huge time dilation. What if space probes like Cassini or Martian Lander, these work fine, and the Apollo missions, they were using what? Bellcrafts? Well, obviously this is a complicated, but it mangles our previous idea about space. If someone could please put us straight, many thanks.
Okay, let's see. And so, and of course, Isaac's in the background going, somebody can't speak English right. Doo-da, doo-da. Okay, all right. Isaac here to state, for the record, though Bellcraft, as they are referred to, did sometimes get into space, they always had a little help from their friends. They always claimed that human ingenuity and a necessity is the mother of invention. But most of the time, a little help comes in the background. Not to brag, nor to denigrate, but in a lot of cases, whereas an innovation comes about or an idea is born, there has been help, either in akashic form or in telepathic form. In short, the firmament is harder to pass than one thinks. That is all. Next question, please. Don't ask Isaac. So yes, basically getting all ideas basically is what he's trying to say come from the whole source field type energy and essentially the akashic, and whatever you are imagining, you're actually getting it from a different spot where your oversoul happens to be walking somewhere in the multiverse, omniverse, super omniverse. This is what he's trying to say there. There's also a sequence in Stargate SG-1 that actually describes this pretty efficiently with the telepathic part, where the Ori were getting regular primitive people at first to basically dream how to build spaceships for them and form an army, on their behalf. Essentially, the Ori are essentially Orion and hedge betting. I didn't like how they made Asgardians also the Greys in it. That drove me nuts. But they're essentially depicting two sides of the same coin, showing them as Greys. I didn't like that. But with this, even though in parallel universe or that, but with this though, the firmament is like the galactic barrier in Star Trek, where they had to fight to get past it. This is essentially how space is built along that of, I believe, the borders of an already existing sun, or that are essentially portals to other dimensions as well. So they're essentially like a black hole can be as well. Going through the event horizon of a black hole, you end up in a different dimensional space or even another universe. This is the same for an active sun. It's the same for a solar system, where anytime I looked into space, I would see this weird purple mist. You can travel through it. It's just you have to have the proper shading, like a welder has a visor. You have to have the proper shading over the windshield of a ship or a view screen that can filter out all this. It looks like a purple mist going between the planets. It's really weird looking, but the Van Allen belt is a firmament, and the Kuiper belt is also another stage of the firmament. It's all about the dimensional layers, spaces, temporal layers, just like you see in Interstellar, where it's the theory of relativity. The further out they go, the more there's that delay. They have fixed this through frequency technology, so this doesn't actually happen to them. Like you see in Star Trek, they're going at warp speed. They'd come back and it'd be 10,000 years later if they were using warp speed like that. They showed that again in Stargate Atlantis, where they saw an ancient vessel going warp speed, light speed, and they'd been at it for 10,000 years. It was only a few hours for them. So about 10 to 12,000 years, essentially. So, next question.
Is the firmament where our Midgard stops and other worlds begin and end?
This one was fascinating. So, yes. That's good, young man. Odin here to state that officially you are absolutely right. When one passes through either the earthly firmament or the spatial firmament, one is nearly always passing into another temporal or dimensional space entirely. Relativity included in this functionality of creation. Even above the clouds, we sit within the land of the gods themselves. Peace, true peace. This applies to all worlds. Memory and frequency are one. This is all for now. Wink bye for now. Hee hee wink Odin. So he was basically telling me to read between the lines there because of an earlier session I had with Bjorn that talked about this same subject. So that's what he was hinting at. So next.
If we really stood on the moon, would we see Earth as our common images do? Or would we see a misty ball or firmament or something entirely different? returning, would we need a temporal signature to return in the correct time, place, and this vision of Midgard? If so, and if we were fucked up, or if we fucked up the return, could we accidentally end up in the Scottish village with a huge time displacement?
Yes, there was a channeling did of Tigern in the Scottish village where it was an offshoot branch timeline where they just kept going from the 1700s on. And they just kept living the way they wanted to live in their own branch timeline, like somebody in the show Loki wanting to live in their own branch timeline kind of thing, and going back to the timeline with all the little tree branches. Yeah, this is essentially what that was essentially referring to. And what he was referring to is like if we tried to return to Earth, would we jump into a branch timeline? The Orions did this when they slipped back through time. They ended up in all sorts of frickin' branches when they came into the system. When they hit the nexus point of the Bifrost, and they spiraled all over. This is why UFOs crash, because of our energy and of the energy of the planet and the magnetic field, and also all the portals and portal fragments and fragmentaries. So we'll go to the answer. Okay, let's see. No and yes, young man. Odin to state, for the record, that the Earth somewhat be as seen as you see it in photos. A special filter is necessary to see it as such. Some photos are legit and some not. Your Martian rover pictures were all taken on Earth. Greenland, Iceland, as well as bits of Canada, US, desert states, as well as parts of Africa, were used to fake those famous Martian photos back in the 90s. The face of Mars, as well as the Sidonian Plateau, are real photos mixed with fakes. Your people stood on the moon only a few times, long enough to get help constructing bases and the like on both Mars and the moon. Series 2, as well as Jupiter, Saturn, Mercury, and Venus, and not in a different frequency either. Now, returning to Earth, does this result in time slips? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. Precise calculations are necessary for returns, but in the event that there is a miscalculation, retrievals are possible and have happened. This is how the Orions crash through time into very different areas. This is all for now. Both of you, wink, Odin. Yeah, that's also, there's a line in the show Ahsoka season 1 where they use this hinge to try to jump from one galaxy to the other. They said if your calculations are slightly off, you're going to go off into the black or go off into the void, I believe they said. So yeah, that, not to dump on the void, but that's what was set off, just trail off. That's also hyperspace in Babylon 5, where you're off and you get lost into the void of hyperspace, or you have to have beacons along the way. That's kind of what the same kind of principle they're hinting at here. So next.
Does Pele have to follow the angel's unaware rule in any way? Not just her, obviously, but wanted to just mention her because she's simply amazing. What about forest people? They don't follow those rules, do they? What is the difference between, say, Elena and Fuma when it comes to this? We can compare Elena and Fuma in many other ways in a later, more serious conversation, but for now, we'll just leave it there.
Okay, Fuma here, Pele does not, but we do. So does Elena. We can and have had a special dispensation to be able to show ourselves more and more. However, this has gotten us targeted a bit, sorry to say, by those who feel that we shouldn't now be so cavalier with our images. Elena and Vesa, and even Isaac and Harry, need more leverage when it comes to the angel's unaware rule. That is all. Analum always, Christopher. Wink. Next question, please, if you will. Wink. God, I'm tired of those wink emojis. Okay. I think from this point forward, I'm not going to actually wink. I'm just going to have you assume they are there, because that gets a little repetitive. So, next.
I was getting into a meditation a while ago. I usually suck bananas at it. Really big chocolate dip bananas. It's bad. But anyway, I suddenly heard this blah like noise, loud and clear. Have you ever experienced anything like that? And why do I hear my own breath so loudly, but yet out of sync with my physical breathing? Maybe it's not even my breath. It knocks me out of the zone each time.
And as it's designed to do, that is the binary network, essentially. Let me see here. Isaac here to say that this is the binary network / the mouth at work. When one hits a tripwire, a silent yet loud alarm goes off, and the network mouth begins to interrupt, preventing people from hitting the zone. He here also calls it the junk layer, whereas a ceiling is hit. He perceives these tripwires as spider webs, but in all actuality, they look like lasers. That is all for now. Bye now, Isaac. And I think I'm going to quit the quotes too, because that's also equally as irritating. So at some point, I will post these particular questions and answers to the lifting group on Facebook. And if you want to actually see that more, so you can see the written forms of them, please let me know. So next.
What is a gift, not a gift? A miracle, not a miracle. Meaning if a large sum of money comes in, why is it almost always offset by a need and not a want? Balance or oppression?
This was actually a wonderful question. I actually get thoroughly sick of the offsetedness where something like you get a large sum of money and then some weird, creepy thing happens and then it goes away. So I'll go into that in a minute. I'll read the answer first. One word and one word only suits this answer, and that word is God. I will use quotes for this one because it's necessary. So in that prearranged universe, God set the stage, and worship fueled and or self-farmed it. This means people expect that to be godly, one must give away or use a great sum of money on godly concerns and or a need, never a want. That said, that system was created by Enlil as well as others, Rome included, to make sure everyone, and I mean everyone, giveth unto Caesar. Get it? A scam, Isaac. And a cruel one at that. Next question, dumbass. And there's more to this. P.S. Guess what? It had nothing to do with being humble either. Bye for now, Isaac. So, the one thing I will mention, and there is a story that I have seen on multiple occasions that passes around the internet once every decade or so. And this has happened since the 90s, I might add. This story, I think, had to have happened in the 70s or 80s or something like that. What ended up happening was this woman ends up can't pay for her health insurance, so she stops. About a day or two later, she gets hit by a car, put in the hospital. What happens next is a giant medical bill. What happens next is she plays the lottery. What happens next is she wins the lottery, but it happens to be the exact same amount as the medical bill, and they cancel each other out. The end. This is complete bogus because one cancels the other out. What do you get to play with in the end? What do you get to use anything for? Because people follow this "giveth unto Caesar" type of mentality. It's like that story in the Bible where Jesus flips the tables over, and the temple says, "Giveth unto Caesar what belongs to Caesar, giveth unto God what belongs to God." This also applies to this woman, or the two men go approach a well, throw some coins in for their wish, and a woman approaches, throws all her coins in, and Jesus says, "This woman got it right. She gave all that she had." Why would you do that? I know it's supposed to be considered faith, that good things will come. If you just keep doing that, you'll manifest more. I know some people refer to it that, and I completely understand where they're coming from with that. But this also, you flip it to the negative connotation, and that just means Caesar basically telling you to giveth all unto him for taxes. So you can kind of see where you can see both sides of the equation on that. What Isaac was saying here was people self-farm this other thing in play, manifest this other thing to where, oh, you're not supposed to have more than this. You must remain humble. You're not worthy. That's one time you'll see me, you do the quotes thing. But the worthy, unworthy crap that I do not abide. But this is essentially what he was referring to. So, I mean, there's varying opinions on that subject, but this is where I'm personally at too. Next.
To Michael Jackson, did Ellen DeGeneres, her partner, and Rosie O'Donnell all flee the U.S. to Iceland and England, respectively, to escape Diddy and his list, or President Trump, or both?
This was actually great. So let's see. They did so because they are on the P. Diddy client list. Chris, Trump has some to do with it, but it is more so because of Diddy and Epstein before him. I can say no more, or I will incur blowback on you, Joanna, Katrina, and Laverne. Be seeing you next we speak. Hee hee. Ow, I can't do the Michael Jackson thing, but I'll just skip that from this point forward. Michael Jackson, and he wrote an addendum here. P.S. So now they're doing P.S.s, by the way. Pay close attention to what happens in the coming months on this trial, Chris. Clues to your own past, lost history, and memories. But for now, meaning he's referring to the SSP stuff for that. But yeah, I thought this was actually quite interesting. He'll drop us nuggets every now and again, and I think it's interesting. It was basically saying Trump had little to do with it. It's more the whole Diddy situation. They tried to make it seem as if it was Trump. They were escaping the Trump presidency. It was actually, and also all the reforms and the doging and all this other stuff. This had to do with Diddy. So, and ultimately Epstein client list too. So next.
This is my personal question. That psychic who claimed to do auto writing with you said Madonna is dead. Is this so? I know George Michael said she would be leaving soon. Contract over.
Okay, yeah, this was actually quite interesting. If I can dig up the video, I'll put the link in the descriptor. It was basically somebody that was doing automatic writing with Michael Jackson. There was some things that actually jived with some of the channelings I did, and some things that did not. That basically he was saying it wasn't him. So I will go on to this one. All right. Yes, she is indeed dead, both of you. And good to hear both of you. Oh, excuse me, I got it
And good
right.
ear.
Oh, I didn't read that right. And good ear, both of you, for music and energy. Hee hee. Now, she died only a while back when you saw her look like an alien. You guys all remember that picture. This is when the changeover, I'll have to say do this for that one, took place. She was being controlled up till that time. She was replaced because the real died, or the real one died. The same happened to Biden in Las Vegas. He is not him any longer either. Hope this helps both of you. Michael Jackson. I find that interesting to put context to Biden. There's rumors that he died in the meeting in Las Vegas towards the end of his presidency. And that this keeps being reconfirmed over and over again. The guy you're seeing is an actor or a double of some kind, just so they can run that down. Now, eventually, the narrative, what the CIA and them like to do, they'll run the narrative down by eventually having him pass away. Pass away. I'll do that time because then they can cover the fact that he actually died a while back. Also, people, they have this big controversy about him and his health and everything, and I came to find out that this has been around for many years, that if anybody questions the health of a president, the White House orders all the press to act retarded, like they have been doing on this subject, like, oh no, when somebody can clearly see something is amiss. And they do this to make it, to convolute it. The CIA is anything but good at misdirection, and or is also creating chaos. If they can't misdirect something, they create a bunch of chaos. And this is essentially what has been going on with that, where the White House gave an order essentially that none of the reporters are supposed to automatically poo-poo anybody and ridicule anybody that actually stumbles onto anything of the truth or of that sort. Then later on, as you see, they came in and started saying, "Oh yeah, we were told to do this, we were wrong," because basically the narrative is up. And it's almost up, but eventually they will just have him pass away and then quietly go away, and there's the end of that. And so that's usually how some of these ops go. Next one.
It says, thanks, Michael. Please tell me about the Dr. Frankenstein in your life, the plastic surgeons. Did you choose them? Dr. Arnold Klein was a friend as well as Debbie Rowe. What happened? They really betrayed you. Debbie, after the trial, please explain.
Okay. And I know there's been a lot of Michael Jackson stuff lately. If you guys have any other celebrities that you want me to try to tune into at some point, make sure that it's not some evil prick out there. Run it past me first. So we'll go into the answer here. An interesting question. There were indeed multiple plastic surgeons. You could say that they were Dr. Frankenstein's for sure. Yes, both Arnold and Debbie betrayed me, but Debbie did defend me for a time. When she would not care for the kids, this made me angry as hell. I don't say angry emoji, but I'm not going to do that anymore. Arnold Klein did betray me because it was he who performed said plastic surgeries on me, then left no records of them. This made me look more like a weirdo. That one I will quote. This was intentional as well as humiliating. It was made to look all self-inflicted, but truth be told, I did arrange it to mutilate myself. I hated my father and as such did not want to look like him any longer. However, he did just go along with those that wanted me dead and or in chains. Mind control, that is, this is what I know. And that was from Michael Jackson. So, next.
Says one more question. Lupus and vitiligo. With these horrible diseases and also being exposed to toxins and drugs, how were you able to have the stamina for a performance?
Okay. He said, my drive was my life. Though there was mind control, I pushed through it to be able to show the world what fighting as well as mind control looked like. Sending blessings to both of you, Michael Jackson. All right. Next.
Says Michael is so funny. Sent me song lyrics. SY. I got some honeysuckle chocolate dripping kisses full of love for you.
Okay. And then he always comes back. Yes, I did that. But you both have been so helpful to me. I will never forget it. V2K aside, both of you get hit with it and plenty of other things. It is ugly, but you must remember that love and song shine bright, more so than they're evil. Hee hee. Got to go. Be seeing you both. Much love to all of you, both me and our friend, who, unless she wants to be named, and Joanna, family, Katrina, Laverne, Sammy, and all of the rest. To all of you hearing this Q&A, especially so, bye. Blowing kisses, Michael Jackson. So, and then my friend repeated, until we meet again, adieu. Thanks, Chris. Until we meet, adieu, hee hee. Kissing lips, Michael Jackson. So, that was the rest of that. Next question.
What is the dark card maneuver and why do beings use it?
I absolutely detest this maneuver when beings do this. I get so butthurt when they pull this, but the dark card maneuver, as I have come to call it, is used by a being or beings within an edifice that make it appear as if the edifice is becoming corrupt and or make it seem as if they themselves are, in order to get the owner of the edifices to part with them within a variety of environments, i.e. forest, waterways, lakes, rivers, oceans, lava/volcanoes, etc. Doing so allows said beings to be released into said environments, get back home. And I've always hated this when beings pull this. It drives me absolutely batty when they do this, because they could just say, can you please do this? I put up a rule in place for any of the beings that did this. I would mail their edifice to the haunted museum, or they would basically go into the same place that I choose, and that's usually the ocean out here. So I will go on to the answer. Elena here to finish this off. I will speak as to why they do it this way instead of just leaving to find the places on their own. For one, not all beings can just go, just like not all ghosts can just go to the other side without assistance. Beings that can leave do, but some need human intervention in order to make it from point A to point B. It is really that simple. It is that simple, really. Next question, Elena. Okay. I see her point, but when they get to the point where they are poking you, they're slapping you around, they're doing things, and they've even resorted to run their hand under me and tickling my nads, and it got really annoying. And basically, and I even felt getting touched, getting hit, all this aside from V2K signals and stuff. It became annoying, and I did try to intervene and go, okay, why is this happening to you? What do you need from me in order to help this along? I never got a sufficient answer. So with that, and even today, from the time of this recording, we had to take a crystal over to the boardwalk at Ruding Inlet and throw it in the ocean because of this. And that one happened to be negative, a negative beam that got into a crystal. It had sat inside of a skull edifice for a while, and those skulls, even though when we make them with shungite, if they crack or break in any way, it can be like a wraith coming through the cracks in your house kind of deal, like the legends say, and the shungite will trap something. And so I just avoid skull edifices and skull likenesses altogether. And also, even the naked lady ones, they will get some negative fairies sometimes. So I try to avoid either one of those. So we can go on to the next question.
Did the actor Anthony Daniels go through the Mandela effect, where he is alive again in this timeline? If so, why and how?
Yeah, Anthony Daniels was famous for playing C-3PO in Star Wars. And I distinctly remember after he was on a show with Josh Gates during the lockdown, that shortly after his appearance on that show, he passed away. He's not dead. You can look at him right now. He's not deceased. So another Mandela effect, like with Mandela or any of the others we've mentioned. You know, Max von Sydow. He died shortly after Conan the Barbarian. He was in Star Wars: The Force Awakens later on. You know, so why is okay? Let's see. This is one by Isaac. Why is because you jumped timelines to one where Anthony Daniels was and or is still alive, and how because your frequency is and or has been as such that you jump timelines as to where Anthony Daniels is still alive. Good. Next question, please, dumbass. Isaac. That is true. This is how this happens. Sometimes timelines can fold, and objects and people those branches of the Argentine tree come together, and that's where you get some of these Mandela effect things coming from. Also, jumping timelines. People told me about the movie like yesterday. We have never seen that one where the Beatles didn't exist in one universe, and somebody could use their song because he remembered all of it. People remember it because they're in a particular frequency to remember it, and they move along as if the other things still happen, but yet they're in that timeline. You would think that would be their variation or variant from another universe. No, it doesn't actually always work that way. There is, but in this case, not so much. So if people want to know more about time slips and things like that, let us know. Next question.
Is the quick progression of technology part of the 100-year disclosure contract narrative?
I will only go briefly into this because we are going to do a lecture for the 2025 Disclosure Now conference in St. Beats, Florida at the Serrata between July 15th and 18th on this very subject. So I will be brief and I will keep it to his answer, Isaac's answer here. Yes, dumbass, it is. Quickly upgrading and updating the current public technological level to that of the galactic standard, meaning that this is where there is no slow drip being applied, meaning that's the area where no slow drip is being applied within the yield or slow drip is what I will say. Watch, look, and listen to the events around you. There is far more to this concept that you currently think and feel that has yet to be revealed to you. Next question, please, dumbass. Isaac. I promise we will put more context to this when we upload our episode, that we will have a lot more on this subject from the conference. So as of right now, I don't want to give away too much on this. To suffice to say, it is a huge topic in multiple different areas of this. The people, again, isolated to Eisenhower, but there's a lot more, the Eisenhower time frame, but it's a lot more to it than that, just saying. And the abduction treaties, but that's all I'm saying. So let's go.
Why have some identified President Donald Trump as the Antichrist and or Nazi? Who created the original Antichrist parameters, such as he will have a seat at every table and he will end all wars, he will unite the world, etc.? Are the cabal factions mimicking the prophecy as they did with copying the Black Death history with COVID?
Yeah, with the Black Death history, we did a small recording on this quite a while back around the time of the COVID lockdowns, and we noticed that they were mimicking some of the Black Death history as far as, in the Black Death history, the merchants and all that became really powerful. In this instance, the merchants were hurt. It's like they were repeating history, but learning from their mistakes of the past, creating a plague, and this is essentially it as well. So I will go into the answer. People are going to be very mad at this one, but who said this one? This would be, I think. Okay. All right. One answer will suffice for all of these cluster questions. Chris, for one, the Antichrist narrative was created by Rome at the same time as the Christ narrative time frame. They created the hero and the villain. Ironically, is it not? Ironic, is it not? The famous quote from The Dark Knight is, "You either die the hero or live long enough to see yourself become the villain." Since it was referring to Julius Caesar, well, in any respect, this was a generational myth generated by Rome, the Holy Roman Empire, and the Council of Nicaea, in order to proclaim the parameters of what Christianity's control mechanism would ultimately look like. In this, the council and those that came before them created, under Enlil's tutelage, the hero and the villain, angels and demons, devils and gods. Worship no other god before me, etc. But they needed something greater than just the Jesus story to control people. They needed the Antichrist. So, in turn, they needed this within the eventual theater of puppets, too. It is a time-honored part of the for and against conspiracy that has been lovingly yielded into the 100 Years Disclosure Contract narrative. Or should I say, the 500,000-year disclosure contract narrative. Get it yet? How old and how expansive this truly is. Good. Let this all sink in. I'll wait. Bye for now. Next question, please, don't ask Isaac. So, basically how long things have been truly going on. Chrome would say this too, about the time it took the Titans to evolve from going from spirit to blobous life forms to bone, blood, skin, hair. This took millions and millions and millions of years. People have no concept of how long these things are, even to the Great Seeding, and also even to Atlantis and Lemuria. People have no concept of how long these things are. That's what Isaac was hinting at there. You'll see a lot of that kind of subject also on GIC as well. So we'll go on to the next one.
Why did they switch your head out for Biden on Benny Johnson?
This was for Michael Jackson, and to give context, there was a video of Benny Johnson did an animation at the end where it was Biden in the Thriller video as Michael Jackson. So we found that funny. So it is because they wish to show that both he and I are dead, meaning no life in him and no life in me and my movement against people like Joe Biden, Jeffrey Epstein, and Pete Diddy. Get it, Christopher? And Michael Jackson. Meaning a lot of the symbolism, a lot of the things that I pick out as disclosure in the media, people like him are influencing from spirit. Also, a lot of the things in games you hear me talk about, the reading between the lines. This seems to be Michael Jackson's forte from spirit, and was when he was alive too. So, but this was more of a gag, a real video or a parody. But it was basically him. Somebody was basically slamming Michael Jackson in this, basically saying he's as dead as Biden. Haha, we got you, kind of thing. No, you didn't, and he would be laughing right now because he's in spirit, because life never truly ends. If you can go with that life is eternal and you meet each other in the afterlife, these people have nothing on you. So I heard damn right from that. So from that statement. Next question.
Is there something to the concept known as global warming? other than what we have already been told?
Okay, this is another Isaac. Let's see. All right, I think one. Okay, yes, dumbass, there is, but the answer won't be lengthy today. Now, are beings rekindling the basalt devices created and active for what is known as the Great Seeding? Yes, yes, they are. But there is your political theater to consider, as well as this. There is planetary warming going on its very own, but it is being quelled by said devices, or you would call all be in deep shit right about now. The Earth would normally move about, but with the devices activated, this will never happen, but very, very slowly. Next question, dumbass. I've already referred to the great seeding earlier in the program, but there was also a Doctor Who reference that I found fascinating, but it went to the other end of the spectrum. The Christopher Eccleston version of the Doctor goes to the year 5 billion, and Rose thinks he's there to save the Earth. He goes, no, we're giving it a good send-off, meaning it was too expensive to keep devices in place to keep the sun from roasting the Earth, so they all decided to let it happen. And she says, why are the continents all aligned like how we know them? He says, oh, this was done basically to represent classic Earth, meaning that they had the ability to move the continents around. This was I say the reverse of the Great Seeding because they're letting it die. But this is exactly what happened in the time of the Great Seeding, pulling Pangea apart and arranging them how we know them today. We can go on to the next question.
What is a good explanation to give people as to what soul shards, aka shards of spirit, are?
This is actually great. This is a fairly long one. Okay. All right. All right. The quickest, most convenient explanation on what you call soul shards or shards of spirit are this. A quick rundown, if you will. They are dimensional fragments of energy, usually no bigger than a grain of sand. They will seem like they are part of one's immediate energy core, which is water mixed with energetics, soul, the genetic memories, etc. But in all actuality, they are the unkept areas, the unseen, the unguarded areas. Areas of ourselves that reach out in dreams, in healings, and in dimensional projections, also known as bilocation, astral projection, as well as Reiki healing and trench work. They went into that. When one performs these tasks, one displaces oneself with that of the other person, temporarily, of course, but in the said time frame, one may lose part of oneself, temporarily speaking, of course. This makes one vulnerable to attacks as well as energy drainage. Say if a Draco had a shard of yours, several things can and do occur. For one, deep depression and anger emerge. More than the recommended balanced variety. You see that I said some is okay, right? This also means that if you can see, you are already there with said entity, and said entity has consumed said fragment of you already. Creepy, I know. Imagine if you could see them. So to reclaim this piece of you, you must first cut the cord by transmuting said entity, meaning cut their head off. Next, you must say this. Say this. To true benevolent source creator, please return to me any and or all fragments of self-dimensional, frequency, energetic, and or vibrationally based that belong to me within the here and now moment, and discard any that do not belong in the here and now moment. This is forever so with all moments, sessions, and expressions. This will fix the issue, at least until something is again, at least till something happens again or is again. I highly recommend not allowing this practice to continue. I and we do hope this clarifies this issue for further teachings. Blessings to all. And this came from Moroni, so of the Carvan people, and also famously the Joseph Smith lore as well in the Mormon Church. So next one.
Was the ACIO, also known as the Advanced Alien Contact Intelligence Organization, really created by ETs, and do some of their people travel to other dimensions?
And this was Vesa, but this answer was very short and it was slightly cryptic, actually. Yes, Vesa here. Yes, they do, and yes, they were. I can say no more about this subject matter, but suffice to say, you will not be happy. And they were frowning about this and crying about this. No clue why. That is all. Vesa, no clue as to this cryptic answer for this, but that is the last one in this bunch, by the way. Let me see who is actually going to talk tonight. I know there were several clamoring for this one. I offered to give Moroni the spot, but I don't see him around. So they could be in the next one we do. I had a funny feeling it was going to be the forest people that were going to answer this because it was also Fuma that left the last affirmation and blessing. Let's see. True benevolent forest people, are you actually wanting to talk or is it someone else? Oh, it's forest people. If you could reach back here and get the one statue, the little red one in the corner there. All right. Let's see. This is Broston, by the way. So that would probably mean it's him. So he goes, yes, no shit. All right. Okay. What's your first clue, Sherlock? They've started to interact with me that way now because they want to do the joking, bantering back and forth here. So, all right. Let me get situated here. Okay. Yes, I know you guys had to arm wrestle Moroni for the belt. Yes, okay. He can come in some other time. Yeah, okay. Normally these things would be on World of Sasquatch, and we do apologize for not having more of those lately. The force people do come and go when they're able. That just so happened they provided us with a lot of content recently, so here recently. So Ralston here. Yes, it is quite interesting the eclectic nature of a lot of your questions, both self provided and majority being public provided. There is something that we wanted to address that could be made more public, but Isaac brought this up in the past in a private matter, but this is more a public matter. This has to do with, how can I put this kindly, different ADHD and OCD behaviors. This is where the mind is opened up to having to run habitual behaviors, either in a more Tourette's sort of way or an OCD or ADHD sort of way. V2K is responsible for this. There are also some other things going on recently that these forest people have had to step back, but now we are actually coming back out of it. Sometimes we have to go back into, no, it's not a hidey hole, Isaac. We go back into and duck away for a moment. It is actually clearing. With that said, this is why I can actually speak. When he felt he had to do a question as soon as he got it, this kind of thing, which is fine. You don't want it to pile up. But when anxiety builds up with it, I do recommend to anybody sending questions. Yes, if you're in a particular mood when you send it, yes, but also when you type, you are sending words with it, just like when you film, just like when you write. Like poetry, like some of it can reflect how it is. Writing can reflect how it is. Spells, yes, or making pieces. Not that you have done this. Some beings find it funny to put him full of anxiety when he's trying to make tower busters, so they don't like them. Then they can go, as you would say, suck it for all I care. Those things are great, especially when they reflect us. So, not to to ingratiate ourselves onto the public court of opinion, but in this particular way, not that we need to. But I do wish to say that when people send them in, I know you are full of passion and full of exuberance. just try to be in the analem state when it is written. Also, if you are psionically inclined, and you know you are or don't know you are, just know that when you are focusing on an individual, it could be the harmful effects of good intention. Also, this goes for anyone listening, not just into psychically inclined individual. And you've said this in multiple recordings from us and also others, but I wanted to briefly state this. I will now go into questions.
So was there any particular question that you found interesting and wanted to talk more about?
Yeah, the information on the great seeding we thought was actually quite interesting. Of course, those that gave you these terms wanted epic terminology. I suppose it was a great feat. It was a great seeding, but it was a great undertaking. They depicted some of this in your Star Trek Voyager as well, where a group took all their world's oceans and turned it into a big water sphere in space. The maritime sovereignty or whatever they called themselves in that. And it was just a machine that was gravimetrically holding the water in place with anti-gravitic and gravitic technology. This was similar, where there would be these orbs at the bottom of a continent, and they would slowly levitate one down through the firmament, through psionics, and also through, psionics as well, with equipment like psionic enhancement, but through portal tech, and then dropping them into place in some instances, and also taking Pangea and spreading it out, like he said with the Doctor Who and the classic Earth thing. So, this is actually quite interesting because some of our people, the Anakam lines, were actually actively involved in this as well. And also, some of the races created other little familiars called the nature builders. Some of them looked like dinosaur forms, like he ran into some that looked like brontosauruses, and others looked like nymphs or ladies, fairy types. And I will say there was a fairy type that looked like what you'd know as the classic fairy that was created in the time of the Great Seeding. Are they cousins to current ones? Yeah, but there was a different one other than your Lonulosian variants, variations, I don't mean to slur, that was also created for that purpose. The Brontosaurus ones are like, he says, this cartoon from when he was a kid, called Dinosaurs, where there's these dinosaurs in suits. They're trying to make some of the Draco look cool, but at the same time, there was a Brontosaurus one that looked like some of the familiars that were created in the time of the Great Seeding. All of these familiars were type races became their own species. The Forbosi of Atlantis also created several familiar races. One was the Alarum, which their DNA, along with Poseidon's theft, became the unicorn. You had other ones like the reptoid familiars. You also have the Tern that was also mentioned. They were also familiar. They didn't just evolve here. They were using also dinosaur DNA, and they are still alive as well, highly telepathic. And they are actually not nasty. They just can be slightly mischievous. But they were also slaves at one point to the Anunnaki at one point. During the Enki and Enlil spat, but before that, there was the Igigi that Odin and Enlil and all them created that were dark elves, reptile variations. But then you had the Tern, which were also familiars of different races at the time as well. The Igigi were mentioned, your Sumerian material, but the Tern, they want their turn to speak at some point, but. I would highly, highly recommend extreme vetting in that case. They may lie to you, they may not. It just depends on the individual and what side of the bed that particular individual has gotten out of that morning. They are slightly crotchety and with just cause, but they don't always tell the truth. I equate it to a toddler making some things up from time to time. That's just me, and I know they're hearing me and give me the finger, but they also slightly get more easily butthurt. But I will say that they are a people that don't mean you any harm unless you mean them harm. They are one of the only ones left in your Agarthan network of Cytos, and various other races that are descendants of ancient lineages that no longer occupy vast swaths of Agartha. And then you have your military that's tried to occupy some of these more ancient sites and have. And they're studying, so their eggheads are studying some of the temples that were down there and how old some of these areas were back from the time of the Great Seeding, but also back from the time of the Orion Wars, Ragnarok, and them the races that went down there and carved out things in a hurry. This is why you see in Mesoamerica tunnels that look like a big spheroid, like lava tube, where a sphere was actually heating up the rock and consuming and melting it and carving out Agartha. That's what those were for. The ant people legends are part of this as well, where also some of them were actually, some were giant ants that dug sand out. That's why you see big piles of sand where it had been dug out. They were also using technology, I might add. They didn't do it with their pincers or their hands. Well, they don't have hands, but you know what I mean. They look like big ants with a big butt. But with this, also, the sand was also displaced with one of these spheres. Your government currently does something similar. They were taught by ETs, but they use acid. This is how they created Area 51 and S2. People got in trouble for even surmising this. You saw this in your Venom: The Last Dance movie. This was actually accurate. This was accurate to how some of the Galactics did it as well, and they just taught your governments how to do it, or mainly your U.S. government. So it's fascinating, the subject about the Great Seeding. Our people, the Anakim lines, were involved in some of this as well. Some of the records have been lost from that period, but there are, how can I put this, dimensional nodes throughout the galaxy that actually been hijacked by different races. That would be, it's mainly under GF, the Galactic Federation purview, that there are library nodes. Some have been hijacked, some have not, that have some of the Great Seeding history in it and the histories prior to the Orion War. Of course, your Star Trek called it the burn, where a lot of records didn't survive. Same thing with your Blade Runner 2049. They called it the burn. So anywhere you hear the term the burn, that's either along with some kind of psionic explosion like you saw in Discovery, and knock some things out, or it was referring to the Orion War and the galaxy burning. This is why the Galactic Federation made all these damn treaties, especially with the Orions. It's like he equates it to the White Gold Concordat in your Elder Scrolls, where the Empire makes a deal with the elves and makes it so there isn't Talos worship, etc., etc. It's very similar. So it's been a lot of the Asgardian history was put in that series. That said, these nodes, your Vatican Library wants to become the node of that for Earth. There's some species called nodes. They're really a big galactic, well, I suppose I'm being unkind when I say phallic symbol, but it is more of an antenna that transmits the library of whatever they gathered. The one on Earth, of course, is Earth history. The rest is galactic history. This is why he says, when he says, I now ground this into the benevolent earthly Akeshics and the benevolent galactic Akeshics. The Akeshic refers to a library that's dimensional, yes. It's stone technology that actually you would see a big piece of stone floating in space. And stone, it's like the stone technology that makes Stonehenge. And your elves, you also see it in your loving series Outlander with the time stones. Perfect example, unfortunately. He likes to call that a Harlequin novel on acid, but we get the humor. And there's actually some of our people that watch some of your stuff, and that happens to be one thing too. That not my cup of tea, but others. But with this, yes, we see where this would come into play, yes, currently, and why the Vatican wants to become that library.
Right. So again, there really isn't a mistake that it was the American that was chosen. It really
No.
kind of, there's a bigger picture. Again, we'll be speaking to that. But
Yeah, he wants to make the Vatican great again.
exactly. So that's all very, very interesting. So what
to bring about the usage of the library and making it one with the coming of your united world.
right.
You call it New World Order, but it doesn't have to go that route. It can be something kind too.
Right. So with that, what have you guys, it's been actually not just for us, but for some others, there's been a bit of a pause with communication with the forest people. So I wanted to maybe give you a chance to kind of address that, because again, we've been hearing a lot of people haven't been able to really quite communicate as well. So I'm sure it's been on a quite large area. So would you talk about that for just a second?
Yes, others have lost communications briefly with me. Not, I shouldn't say lost. It diminished slightly. And then those people that talked to us would start to get attacked more and more. And we noticed this blowback pattern. So we had to hold back, and we also had to hang back a little bit to prevent blowback, but also to prevent blowback on us too. From some of your military forces out there, they tend to turn on us once a quarter. They tend to do this like clockwork, actually. They follow some bug in the ear, literally with that thing they stick in their ear, and they tend to poke at us every quarter or so. And I'm being quite facetious about that, but it's actually quite severe in some areas. You encountered this back in Arizona, where some of your friends there, Fuma and Seymour, and them had to hang back into some canyon areas for a while, and waterfall areas for a while. It happened. I shouldn't say it happens, because it was actually quite tragic with some of the Anakam elders that got killed. But let's just say they made more than one, and not that I'm making light of death or anything. But with this, without going into humongous specifics, we had to hang back because also the V2K signals were zapping us. Michael Jackson was showing him this from Spirit. Whereas he saw this fuzziness of him, and then also he would see a skew where the mouth was actually skewing what was being said or heard. And you don't want this. And it's very dangerous sometimes to do channelings during this. And it's starting to diminish back. And it was starting to cause OCD type behavior. And I don't want to say artificial connections, but enhanced blowbacks and enhanced psionic spotlights and stuff like that. The mouth was actually responsible for at least 1/3 of this. But we find it funny you call it the mouth. And anybody in their head, if they see just a mouth wiggling teeth and doing stuff at them, sometimes that's demonic. Of course, the mouth is too, but it's this V2K artificial intelligence type signal. And I'm not saying all AI is bad. I am saying that this specific one, it was created by humans and is actually run by human algorithms, created algorithms. And I say more than one. It's not just one thing, so don't equate it to one thing, but it is doing one thing, and that is being its obnoxious self. Fractured like Humpty Dumpty or not.
And would you agree that this, because it sounds like for you, it comes in waves, it just kind of waves over, then seems to release a little bit, waves over and releases. Is that actually true?
Yes, it does come in waves. We do our best to ignore it, but there are times where you just want to shake your fist at the air, or you say giving a finger to the wind, kind of deal. We do this. We know it makes it stronger if we do say shot up or anything like that. He would recommend not doing the same, but he has done it multiple times in his head. You don't want to reconnect to that tether, because then it will fight back, and in a very verbose way. So you want to ignore this. We hear this too. We also been hit with GF testers too. They see us as Earthers. We say we came from galactic origins. It's essentially the chicken and the egg kind of scenario to them, and they feel, oh, we need to be reintroduced to the Galactic Federation in a meaningful way. We do not approve. There's some, I want to say, good testing, quote unquote, out there where some beings will show you, how to be calm or be in that Nahalem state. Great. Moronized people, they tend to create religions, which we're not into that crap, because it came from their planet and they wanted to spread things down here, and that became the Church of Mormon, all of that, and Christianity got fused into it. But with the testers, they will test on ridiculous things, like over amounts of things. Like, how would you not react to certain things? This goes above and beyond the flinch test, I might add. Flinch test is, we just want you to remain calm in our presence, because the energy is so vast, like the whole the Sasquatches or the forest people in the Tibetan temple with the monk, and the monk could sit there for a long time because of the energy frequency differential. And we were calm. Our people were calm. This has to do with that. Anything beyond that is just like West Point on acid, where they are testing you on different types of reactionary situations. But is calm warranted in all of them? Yes. But the ridiculousness came. The reason my people were so mad at them the one time where he saw them in a dream, and they were testing him on, oh, he wasn't supposed to react by the people breaking into his place and going through an underwear drawer and sniffing underwear and everything. That got to ridiculous levels. That we got mad at because they felt they could harass and test more and more and more like a West Pointer on acid, and it started to get on our nerves, and they did it to us too. Oh, you're not supposed to be doing this and helping them and all this. This is why we pulled the sticker gag, because we wanted to be able to help out in a territory. Are we, are some of us bound by certain contracts because we are a galactic fairy race as well in some respects? Absolutely. Even though there's a lot from Earth descendant lineage, we can prove our galactic lineage and family tree. So in this respect, are we bound by some of these treaties out there? Yes. Can we completely show ourselves for lengthy periods of time? No, but we do, and that's part of this slow drip process. Do we abide by the way the 100 years disclosure narrative is going? No. And the yield going, no. We do things our way. Valiant Thor is not the only one that has a claim to fame in this area. Okay, I can move forward now.
No, but just speaking about again, your disclosure to humanity as a whole. I mean, I keep saying to people, I don't know that people yet are ready to see a 15-foot, forest person.
No.
So I mean, you can call
You guys would, but a lot of people aren't. Yeah.
maybe not. Honestly, I don't know. I mean, I would try to be if I really knew that it was, but I can see also I could, can feel fright in whatever building. But I think my point is that, sometimes, and this is an instance where slow dripping it, there is a reason behind it.
There is a reason behind it, but
Yeah.
not too slow and not too fast. I mean, your governments around the world think it's reckless to go too fast, and they will chastise, even harm people that defy the 100 years disclosure narrative in that way. But in another way, if enough people focus and co-create, they can change a lot of this.
Right.
So this is why we do what we do, because we want this changed, even though it means the difference between something slightly rougher and something slightly more seamless. I think you're close enough. He compares this to coming off his gabapentin 300 milligrams before the finish line, and he just said, screw it. And that's how we see it too in some areas. Some disagree with me, some agree. It just depends on what tribe you talk to, whether or not they want that or not too. And some individuals too, some want their privacy, knowing that they full well, if humans saw them as real, they would not get it, because there would be people running out there wanting to talk to them. And you have the Angels Unaware rule as well that is currently in place, but it is actually weaker now. You'll have some that just kind of and thumb their nose at it too, and they'll stand there, wave at you, and go about their day, and they might get a fine for it. So a lot of some of these different races are beginning not to give a crap about that. Now they couldn't linger, like sitting and having a conversation, but they're not going to run off looking all stupid while they're running off either, unless they're how can I put it? Their chaperone that they've had with them. They do have somebody briefly assigned to them for a short period of time, happens to be with them at the time. Then they have to panic and go. But once that that retard goes, then, and I say retard in the truest sense of the word, because those people are hearing me talk. So I tend to slam them from time to time. I don't particularly care for their arrogance. But you would see them as more of an elven type race, and I don't particularly like that particular race. It's not Lancaneer. This is somebody you haven't, or Syrian. This is somebody you haven't encountered. This isn't just Dark Elf. You would see them as a completely, not just white. They have shades of black in them, and these are not. They are more of an Arcturian type. You would say them as Arcturian, but I don't particularly care for their arrogance myself. as they tend to interfere with channelings and such too.
Mhm.
But yeah, aside from those guys not interfering, some of your ET people might every now and again go hi and do stuff like that. You won't get too much conversation, at least not right now, unless they bring you into their frequency and and talk to you that way, and or mind wipe you. It's usually a frequency thing they can get away with as long as they pass you back to this frequency and you tend to forget a chunk of it. He always compares it to the Malcolm McDowell Fantasy Island, whereas Rourke's daughter returns to the island and remembers her entire life there, leaves and forgets all of it. It's along those lines. The ETs out there do it slightly more efficiently than your government. Your government uses a serum, like you see in your Incredibles 2 movie, where he wipes the memory and says it's not an exact science, it's not a smart bomb. They like that, and it ends up causing diseases like dementia and Alzheimer's and such. Not just lack of nutrients. Some of those that worked in the program started to get that too. Your Reagan was one of them that had it used on him. So, you have any other questions for me?
Well, I do. I mean, I want to go back to the ACIO, that Advanced Alien Contact Intelligence Organization.
Yes, yes.
That apparently was created by ETs.
Mhm.
My whole thing is, I get, my feeling is, if you get anything like that going on, it has to be approved by the Galactic Federation to be,
You bet.
a part of this. So when you say created by ETs, do you mean ETs? Do you actually mean a welcome committee by the Galactic Federation? What are we really talking about?
ETs, some wanted to skirt treaties by creating new ones. They decided to create branches off of already existing treaties to be able to create a pocket or a fishbowl that falls within these treaties. Valiant Thor is doing something similar. This is how he was able to interact with Frank Strange's, and also why Indrid Cold was able to interact with Woodrow Derenberger and his daughter Tunisia, of which they still do. It falls within a bracket. He calls them loopholes. They call them loopholes, but they're being kind when it comes to that. It is actually with a bracket treaty. You could call it a bracket treaty, where you bracket off of, or like a parenthesis in a sentence, where you or quotes, where you add it onto an idea, or even an asterisk, like you see at the end of Thunderbolts, where it meant another thing, which was the Avengers. It's kind of like that, where they will asterisk it or bracket it or something, and they just nicknamed them bracket treaties or branch treaties, like a branch timeline. What these do is they will lock onto a particular lineage, like what happened to Woodrow Derenberger and Frank Strange's, and they're able to help be representatives in some form of contact. But again, the angels unaware rule applies, so they can't exactly say they're ETs. But nearly every member of this group is an alien. And humans work with them. It's like within the secret space programs, or like what you see in Stargate, where in Stargate SG-1 and Atlantis and Universe, where different ET groups are actually working underground with the Stargate programs, and also Men in Black. It's the same thing, a more comical version. But with this, these bracket or branch treaties allow for them to walk amongst people, show themselves completely, and also they might spin a small tale. They'll abide by the yield, but for the most part, they are, stop, excuse this, somebody was being rude, pulling it out of his head. You must know this part to be educated on this. They actually can give at least 90 to 95% of the actual information. Within this, they had to abide by, of course, the already established 100 years disclosure narrative contract. Essentially, again, your white gold concorded in your Elder Scrolls, like the elven lady showing up to the meeting saying, "I have to see if this is abided by." There's your chaperones right there. They look like elves, and the chaperone would be like how your General Tullius had this handler that was with him, that was saying, "Oh, I have to make sure this is being abided by. This is how these dickheads act." So very vain, or your Tendiron from your Farscape, very vain, very arrogant. This is Sorry for the pop culture references. His subconscious has stored most of this over the years because he remembers being in situations like these from not only past lives but from different abduction scenarios and SSP scenarios, and other multiversal scenarios as well. And what he can lock onto is the similarities of things, and also his galactic history knowledge that he came in with, genetic memory and soul memory. But the yield in this is in these branch treaties where they literally can bracket off or asterisk this off of a known treaty. It must be a known one. They can't create a new one. If they could, you'd have them all doing it. And it would become a clusterfuck very quickly. And they'd be going, wait a minute, I can do this? But you have to find an existing one, and you must go within the parameters of that existing one to create the bracket treaty. And within that, you can walk amongst people out in the open, even other frequency or not, you can wear equipment and whatnot. And this is how they get away with this on Halloween, too. Like you saw your little goat Harry Potter guy. He had to be integrated written in to a branch treaty. Any of them that you spotted that were ETs during that time are branch treaties. And the forest people, some of them fall under this. Some groups fall under this. Some are abhorrent to any of them. Some are important, are not abhorrent to any of it, depending on who you speak to. Now, with the ACIO, this is one big branch treaty. One big branch or bracket, I should say bracket treaty is more accurate, where you bracketed it outward. Say if one of the ETs wishes to speak at an event. What do you do in the case of a bracket treaty? Well, you go within a conformed set of information that falls within that treaty's purview. And whatever that one that they bracketed off of, and they can't just change it and switch it to a different one, it's one that's already established, and others can use this bracket too. So if somebody starts this crap, others can use it, and others have and do. And some might skew their origins a little bit, might say they're from space, from when if they're from the Introverse or something like this. But they don't have to necessarily, they can choose the 5% they want to skew, and if that happens to be their place of origin, great. I don't say great, but you get what I'm saying. Even if they want to skew the ending, or if they want to skew the warnings before the spells, let's just put it that way, not have instruction manuals on anything that happens to be dangerous and or useful, then they can do this. But that's where the yield applies, you see. If one of them was talking at an event, and within the bracket treaty, if they start to skew, they'll either get hit with V2K or have one of these obnoxious chaperones or handlers with them going, okay, we're short on time. And they could be like a half an hour out from the end. You might, they were told to wrap it up or switch it. Or if you see them do this weird X or switch track maneuver with their hands, they're being told cut it or time out, they're being told to switch to a different topic. This is what you have to look for at other conferences and such for this. But the bracket treaties can become a clusterfuck if they are untethered. But somebody opened both Pandora's box and a can of worms at the same time when they created this concept. And this is a fairly new development too, within the past 30, 40 years. So not even, actually. It's more like 20. And I would have to say your beginning of your 2000s, some of these ingenious galactics started doing this, but they started work on it before then. They started work on this tooling with the idea out there, and they got it kind of voted on that they would dick with these a little bit. So they just called them both branch or bracket treaties for short. And humans actually came up with the words for those. But with the ACIO, this is essentially what's going on. It's a carved out, like pre-designated, approved of. You say narrative, but it is more flexible than a contract or a narrative. It's within the confines. Like you can walk around in this room and you can pick up any object and you can talk to people. As long as the object's in the room, like your computer, you can talk to anybody. You can record, you can do all these things, you can do sessions, you can do all these things. But you do it out there. That's the premise of the branch or bracket treaties.
But again, did you say that they're who they really are, though, it's angels unaware, so they can't say that
No,
they're the
that still
alien coming in.
applies.
Okay,
They can say aliens founded their group,
okay.
but they themselves also have ETs there.
So tell me from your perspective, what is the benefit for humanity and what is the benefit for them and their particular race involved in it?
It's races, plural. It's
Mhm.
in there. They may look similar, but they're from different planets and worlds, both here. It's like your Galactic Interversal Consortium, the concept of galactic, also interdimensional, and an agreement, you see. That's why Valiant Thor came up with that name. What they get out of this is essentially not just expansion, but also more of a foothold here. It used to be you had to have your child dropped off here, like Clark Kent, like a friend of yours that you don't want to mention the name on air right now, that was dropped off, raised by human parents, like Clark Kent, and went on to be a healer. But this skirts galactic rules. This is also a branch or as bracket treaty. What they get out of it is they have more of a stake on what happens here. They wanted to expand that was like in the 50s and 60s right there. They want to, around the time of the 100 Years Disclosure narrative, there were some trying to experiment with these branches or brackets. This is now expanded into what you see. What they get out of it is more of a stake, what happens here, but in a group, not just an individual like the original premise was. The original premise is one individual could change a lot here. They noticed that if they tried to create a think tank, within the same branch or bracket treaty, they could get away with that more, and that's essentially your ACIO. They are getting out of it more of a stake in what happens on the Earth surface or on Midgard.
And then I'm assuming humanity gets some sort of knowledge that they didn't quite know before.
Yes, and they get more, and that does fall under the 100 Years Disclosure narrative, the slow drip. But within these branch trees, they can't exactly violate that, but they can skirt it a little bit. They can do it their way, like Valiant Thor does it his way. They can. They would be the first to say, he's not the only one that can do this. We can pull this crap too. And you'll see other groups pop up too. You'll see other formations pop up of a similar connotation that are within bracket or branch treaties. They can be annoying because you're still having to walk the razor's edge, but you're not risking falling into the Grand Canyon by getting in trouble. You, however, would fall onto kind of a bed of glass because of some of the penalties involved. And what does that involve? Sometimes it's fines. Sometimes that's a resource acquisition, like a Ferengi would say, rules of acquisition kind of thing. Think Ferengi when you're dealing with some of these chaperones, are Arcturian accountant types. You also saw a henchman-looking guy in your Jupiter Ascending, and you also saw one in your Avengers Endgame that look kind of like them a little bit. They look like some of your Syrians and some of your Lancaneer types. They're kind of interrelated, but they are slightly different in the application on how they do things. Your Lancaneers are slightly more violent soldier types. Some of them are scientists that think that they are God's gift. Then you have the Arcturians that want to say, "Oh, you're going to skirt this. I'm going to go with you to make sure you don't skirt the." So it's annoying, is what it is. But you will start to see more groups do this as time goes on. Disclosure in the media, like he says, your Mountain Dew commercials with all the ATs in it, and us in the progressive commercial with a UFO. Some of that's designated within that bracket too, but tiny ones, because they're not actually saying a whole lot. They're not interacting with you. These big bracket or branch treaties, whole little groups are interacting with you face to face. You've encountered some ETs that are falling within this a little bit. You also encountered one at your Phoenix Psychic Fair that was more of the ancient Mayan variety, that came right up to him and basically said, "You have to understand we're around you," kind of thing, but couldn't say more than this. Or when Isaac or Elaine and Vessa would appear, it fell within loosely one of these, if this makes sense.
Right, no, it does.
Or when we appear, sometimes it falls within one of these as well, or leave a footprint or something, it falls under that slow drip premise. See?
And then would you consider all of them to be more of a benevolence for humanity? Because,
Yes and no, depending on on who is driving the ship and what group. The ACIO, I have to say there's a mixed bag, but it's mostly beneficial. You might have one here and there that might have their own thing going on, but I will say that it is mostly beneficial. You have other groups out there that it goes pendulum swings the other way that want to do the branch and bracket treaty thing, and eventually worlds are going to collide. Literally, in this case, where they're from different places, and some groups don't like each other, and they try to have a pissing match with one another, and they'll form their own. I'll show you. I'll use this treaty, and I'll go and create this bracket and do this, and then that benefits nobody except them when they start one-upping each other, or it's like the same as American Dad with them spooking each other in their own home, kind of going boo. It comes up with that. It ends up becoming like the cabal factions one-upping each other. We do not want this, so we're trying to write stipulations into those that they must be productive and positive. They cannot turn into a resource pissing match after a while.
And then how many different races do you believe are currently in the ACIO?
Oh, wow. This I would have to say, as far as I know, our people included in this to an extent, at least a couple tribes. I would have to say at least 20,
Okay.
give or take, and some mixes as well, but give or take between 15 and 20 at any time.
Okay. Well, thank you. I just felt like there was just so little said about it. I wanted to kind of expand that conversation a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, I think we're pretty much done. I want to, any last words that you would like to say?
It's been wonderful speaking in this venue again. We will come back doing the World of Sasquatch here very soon. Because of the fact that we can come out talking again. Your Spirit Lake people are saying hello. I know you're seeing them soon from the time of this recording. They are perfectly okay as well. Shreyan and Brayon and Leon and the rest of the gang there. Segron as well. So I will leave you all with this. And now always. Thanks to Fuma for coining that particular phrase. So thank you, everybody. Bye-bye. Yeah, when he was talking about the ACAO, I could feel it like being pulled, not necessarily in the back of the head, it was like right from here and here in this temple. It's like you see in your Harry Potter lore where you see Grindelwald pulling the memory thread out of anybody's head or something like that in your Fantastic Beasts, the Crimes of Grindelwald and the Secrets of Dumbledore, although when you see that happening. And also Hogwarts Legacy, that is essentially what that feels like. It's like they're pulling on a thread like that. And it feels very much like that, or somebody's pulling on a string or something, or yanking your hair or something. That's what it feels like, or pulling an eyebrow. So I wanted to make sure I clarified that. I think we're at a good stopping place here. Do you have anything else to add before I do the last affirmation, Blaine?
Not tonight. Hope everybody enjoyed it.
Okay. So, last affirmation and blessing. Remember one thing and one thing only. Analam always. This is all. Fuma. So I thought that's really interesting. So thank you all for watching this. I know there's a lot of these here, folks. Just keep the questions coming, please. And keep them, to short brackets, please, where we only send a few at a time, like maybe 5 tops, if you send a big bunch, because then that kind of puts stress on me to do it. So wonderful questions. Thank you, everybody. And I now close this circle with in true benevolence and no conflicting agendas at this moment in time. So thank you, everybody. Bye-bye now.